Hey everybody, today we're going to take a look at Donald Trump's approval rating on his 100 days in office. Now, I've been really busy the past few days, but I still wanted to squeeze this video in for the milestone. So we're going to go quick through a bunch of different sources and see where he's at. The spoiler is, it's not looking that great at the current moment. Now, here we are on Real Clear Politics. Right now, in the aggregate, he's at 45.3% approve, 52.4 disapprove. That's underwater by 7.1. And then down below, it shows all the polls that are factored into these numbers. Some of them go back a few weeks. And then it also says the sample size and whether they were adults, registered, or likely voters. Now, of course, when you're dealing with a variety of pollsters, there's going to be some outliers. There's going to be some more favorable for the Dems, some more favorable for the Republicans. But Trump's best poll on here from a couple of weeks ago is going to be Daily Mail, where he's at +8. It definitely seems like an outlier compared to the rest of these numbers. Now, his worst poll looks like a bit of an outlier in the other direction. Pew Research has him at -19. Only 3 of these are positive, the rest are in the red, and it comes out to -7.1. Now, as with any president, the opposition wants to see the president underwater. This time it's going to be the Dems. When it was Biden, Republicans were also hoping to see him underwater. And like we're used to with modern politics, there's a lot of polarization, and presidents don't sustain favorable numbers for too long. Gone are the days when a president is in the green or above water for a year or more. So if we go down here, we can take a look at the graph. Now, Trump's only been in office for 100 days. The bad news for him is it's been on the decline. The good news for him is he's got a ton of time left. He could turn it around. He could also go even further into the red. But here on Real Clear Politics, he did start off positive. He's above here by 6% right after the inauguration. Then it was a real brief honeymoon as it quickly got to even. Then for the past 6 weeks or so, he's been underwater. Now it's widened up to about 7%. So as I said a minute ago, Democrats are going to be thrilled that it looks like Trump is not popular. Republicans are going to say these polls are not capturing the Trump base. He's going to be 5 to 10 points higher than this. I think it's more likely that he's taken a dip, but again, it's relatively early into his term. The changes he's done are going to be high risk, maybe high reward. And in politics, it's very, very fleeting. Sometimes things can change, even close to an election. No way to have a lot of confidence in the midterms, let alone the next presidential election. But with that said, Trump is going to have to do better than this if he's going to have any success. Now let's go on to another source. Ever since 538 shut down, we've got to use Nate Silver's silver bullet. So silver has Trump underwater just a little bit more. It looks like it's at about 9.2%. And similar to Real Clear Politics, you could see these streams cross in early to mid-March. And if you look at the net approval rating, it's the same story. He started off positive, then he declined into 9.2% underwater. Then if you go down here a little bit more, it tells you which polls that silver factored into this aggregate. It's not exactly 538, but I guess it's the closest we're going to get. In every one of these polls, Trump is at a negative. So we're going to keep going. Here's the graph on the Economist. Now, they did not update it for the 100 days, but you can see how Trump compares to his first term as well as Biden and Obama. Now, those two did start off higher than Trump. And on this, Trump's second term does dip below his first here. So all these aggregates and data could vary source to source. That would be a big problem for Trump if he's going to sink lower than he did in his first term. He had a bad midterm except in the U.S. Senate. Well, let's go on to NBC News. Here we've got something similar, but they also throw George W. Bush into the mix. But here we are at the 100 days. And on their last update at day 90, Trump was still above where he was in his first term. Maybe that's changed over the past week and a half. I don't know why they didn't do it for the 100 days, but it is what it is. Now let's take a look at where he's at on Civiqs. Now Civiqs has a huge sample size. We're looking at over 22,000. And this covers January 20th through April 28th. And here they've got Trump underwater by 10 points. 43 approve, 53 disapprove. However, you might notice the difference is that Trump is underwater during the entire term. It's not what we saw from Nate Silver or on Real Clear Politics. And on this, his rating actually looks fairly steady. It's only declined slightly since the beginning. Now, one good thing about this data is we can narrow it down by different demographics. If we glance at the youngest, 18 to 34, then Trump's rating is still steady, but he's way underwater at 32% approve. If we go up to 35 to 49, it goes up a little bit. He's at 40% approve, 55 disapprove. With 50 to 64-year-olds, this Trump is above water. 50 to 47. So that looks like it's his best age bracket. How about the oldest voters? 65 plus. This shows it just about even, but he is above water by 1. Now in some other polls, I have seen Trump struggling a bit more than expected with the oldest voters, and he's not doing as bad as you'd expect with the youngest. There's a lot of different sources out there, but on this, it shows the younger you get, the worse Trump is doing. So let's clear this out. Let's take a look at non-college graduates. That's usually going to be Trump's base, the working class voters. Here it's again kind of steady since the beginning, but again, we're really only going back about 3 months and a week. So he's underwater by 1%. What about college graduates? Then it dips down to 39 approve, 57 disapprove. And then his weakest education group is going to be postgraduates. There it sinks all the way down to 29%, 67 disapprove. If we break it down by gender, we can look at male voters. Here he's above water by 5%, 50 to 45. If we take a look at females, it's a totally different story. 36 approve, a big 60 disapprove. Let's take a look at just Democrats. This is obviously going to be super low. Just 3% approve, 96% disapprove. How about his own party, the Republicans? Here it's almost the opposite of the Dems. Just 6% disapprove, a big 89% are a fan. But the important one to look at is going to be independents. Let's take a look at it. Here it's not super far away from his overall approval rating. 42 approve, 51 disapprove. We've seen that before on Civiqs. The independent rating is very close to his overall rating. We'll take a look at one more section. Let's do the racial breakdown. We've got white voters. Here, it's 51 approve, 45 disapprove. Black voters, only 10% approve, 86 disapprove. Hispanic voters, 36 approve, 60 disapprove. And then other, we've got 35 approve, 61 disapprove. So those are the different demographics. Now let's also take a look at Trump's job approval just on his first term. Here he finished at 40% approve, 57 disapprove. And when you look at it across the entire 4 years, there are a few small peaks and valleys, but I think the easiest thing to say is it was pretty steady during the entire time. Now at the top here, it does list some events that happened during his administration. Now in some of the day-to-day and week-to-week polling from other sources, there was some fluctuation in Trump's approval rating, but at least according to Civiqs, those changes were not all that impactful or long-lasting. Now the thing that I think is worth pointing out here is going to be to take a look at the independent approval rating. That's about as close to an overlap as you're going to get with his overall approval rating. There it's 39 approve, 56 disapprove, and with a couple of exceptions during the 4 years, that approval rating was steady. And again, if you clear it out, it's almost the same thing overall. So there's some good stuff in there, but the key topic for Trump is going to be the economy. Let's see how he's doing just on that. We go back to Real Clear Politics. He's underwater by 13.1%, 42 approve, 55 disapprove. So those are weak numbers on probably the most important topic. Now, just like what I said under Biden, there's a lot of different things that go into the economy. And if just one of those metrics are perceived to be bad, that's going to hurt any president's approval rating on the economy. The midterm is coming up, and then there's always the next presidential election. Any president knows that if this number is low, they're likely to sustain some losses. So let's go back to Civiqs and see what their data is for the economy. This asks, do you think the nation's economy is getting better or worse? Well, right now it says 54% getting worse, 31% getting better, 11% staying the same, 4% unsure. Now this getting worse has ticked up here in recent weeks. It dipped down a little bit after Trump got elected and then got back into office, but now it's pretty much where it was before the election. Now getting worse peaked here in about June of 2022. That was when it got up to 71%. That was when inflation really took off. And I could break it down by party, but it's going to pretty much be what you would expect. Back then, Democrats didn't think it was terrible. Republicans and independents did. Now a lot of that has kind of changed. Democrats think the economy is terrible. Republicans don't think it's great, but they definitely think it's better than where it was under Biden. Now, if you go back and take a look at Trump's first term, the perceptions on the economy were totally different. A plurality thought it was getting better. Now, that all changed once COVID hit. But before the last election, it was known that voters felt nostalgia for the economy during that first Trump term. And that's also going to be a significant factor as to why he got elected. So that's the critical issue, and Trump is going to have to get somewhere back into this range. Now, even when the economy was good here in 2018, he still took a beating in the U.S. House in the midterms. So there's a lot of different factors to consider. One of the things which I did not show here is that usually Trump and his personal favorability ratings, as opposed to his job rating, those are poor. Trump's personality usually doesn't bring out the best in people when it comes to polling. Some of that makes sense. He's definitely unconventional. A ton of the media coverage is also nonstop negative. But even with that said, people still felt pretty good about the economy, way better than compared to now. But again, it didn't really help Trump in the midterms. Now here we've got a similar one. It asks, how would you rate the condition of the national economy right now? Here we're looking at 33% say very bad, 29 fairly good, 28 fairly bad, 5 unsure, and only 4% very good. Again, take a look at this line for very good. It's super low now, but it shoots up back during that first Trump term. That's going to be almost a year after he got into office. Then it stayed pretty good all the way up until COVID hit. Then everything crashed and everything changed. But that's a key metric to take a look at. I just said back then, people did not like Trump personally, but they thought the economy was good and he still had a bad night in the midterms, especially in the US House and for governor. So Trump definitely has time. If this is how it looks in another 6 to 9 months, that's going to be a big problem. So he's going to have to get this 4% up at least into double digits. It's a tall order. I have no idea if he's going to be able to do it. Now the last thing we could do is glance at where Biden was at here on Civiqs, just to get some comparison. Here, Biden started off positive just for a little bit. Then at Biden's 100 days in office here at the end of April, he was dead even at 47.47. That was the last time it would be close to positive. Then it slipped into the red and it never looked back. So 3 or 4 months into Biden's term, it didn't look terrible for him. But obviously nobody knows what's going to happen. It could be good, it could be bad. Voters tend to remember the bad things a lot quicker and a lot easier than the good. But Biden suffered from weak approval ratings. They were mostly in the high 30s or up to 40% for the remainder of his term. And the last thing to highlight here is going to be to just isolate with independents. There it's totally different than Trump. Biden's approval ratings with independents is way lower. It doesn't line up like Trump's did. He finished with just 27% approval. Trump is above that right now, but again, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows how much it means, especially for the next elections. It's easy to point out that Trump looks weak, but the Democrats also have even worse favorability ratings. And on the registration data we've seen, Republicans consistently seem to make gains. However, if you look at the actual data we've gotten from special election results since Trump got back into office, Dems for the most part are clearly overperforming. So there's always some data for either side to show that they've got some reason to be hopeful. So Trump might crash and burn, get totally wiped out in the midterms and limp out of office. Or Democrats could have a lot of infighting, lack messaging that resonates with the American voters, and Trump's economic data could prove to be a lot more positive than people might think. Just think back through history how things have changed in one direction or the other when people least expect it. At the beginning of the year, this is mostly where I expected to see Trump's rating at this point. I know most of his base is absolutely thrilled, and most of the opposition is totally horrified. There's a lot more I could say about it, but I've got to cut it right here, so let me know in the comments. What do you think about Trump's approval rating here at 100 days in? Do you think the polls are accurate? Do you think they're underestimating his support? Do you think they're overestimating it? Is there at least 1 or 2 things you like about the administration, and at least 1 or 2 things you're not a big fan of? What's going to change over the next 6 months? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.